pasta is not a bad place to start. I've had a lot of conversations with people in my industry and my industry peers about how much what we do can even be considered to be creative. I'm of the opinion that it is creative and can borderline on being an art. And some of the other people that I work in circles with feel like it's more of a trade. It's something you learn to work with your hands. I feel like there's this moment when you're thinking about doing something new where it is creative. And for the people that are, I think, the best amongst us, it can transcend to almost an artistic moment. And then it does kind of break down, beyond that as you teach other people how to do what you do. And then the execution is very, very trade-like. It's very, you have to go fast, you have to pay attention, you have to do a good job at repeating the thing. It's not an ongoing moment of creation as you recreate it, but I think that part of a creative's job is to do things in a new way. It's really easy to look at something that has existed, something that's done really, really well, and just copy it. When I was a kid, I used to do that all the time. I'd draw a picture of Superman that I saw on the front of a comic book. It would be awesome. And I just knew that one day I was going to be like this comics artist. And then I was like, I'm going to draw a picture of Superman doing this other thing. And I can't do that at all because it doesn't exist. That's not my realm of creativity. So I'll say good morning, which is kind of how I used to start all of my speeches and talks. My sister's there, she remembers. I was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, which is kind of a weird thing. I'm just going to jump right into it. It was a thing that kind of complicated my understanding of what it was like to be honest with myself about who I was. So I was the kid that you saw that was in a suit that was either one size too small or maybe too big, depending on the season and how recently my brother had outgrown his. Knocking your door to talk to you about what at the time was my opinion of what was true. And at that age, my opinion of what was true, my being honest with you when I came to your door, was based on what everyone told me was true. They told me that this was the truth, this is the real thing that you talk to people about. And so I knocked on your door and I tried to give you a magazine and get a donation and get you to come visit us and join our idea of what was true. But that didn't pair very well with who I was. It was in the study of materials to write talks and go out and talk to people that I started to have questions that I felt I couldn't explain and I felt I couldn't ask anyone. Because in my experience, faith and curiosity don't make the best partners. So it was one of those situations where I had to hold all, after my first couple of experiences of asking someone a question and getting a response that I wasn't very satisfied with, I decided that I just wouldn't ask those questions anymore. So it's been a really, really long time kind of hiding who I actually was. And so I was very, very happy to be polite and studious and pay attention and advance in the organization. I was really happy to hold the door for people and speak in front of thousands of people or hundreds of people, knock on people's doors. I had friends and a whole organization behind me to do that. But it never really resonated with me as a thing that was fully honest. I couldn't plumb down into the depths of it and make it my own thing. And I have my notes here just in case I go off track, which is what's happening right now. That's kind of one of the things that that was my first contact with the idea that honesty and the truth aren't the same thing. There's a relationship between the two. Anyone can people seek the truth all the time. Everyone's looking for the truth. The police are looking for the truth. The FBI are looking for the truth. A lot of us are looking for the truth. We were looking for the truth this morning when we had a little kid issue at home. Everyone's looking, or many people are looking for the truth. But what you find out is that a lot of people that are looking for the truth, there's no requirement for them to be honest people. And I think the most impactful kind of honesty is creative honesty, because you take a thing that you like, you take a thing that you care about, you tell a story that you've carried around with you for your entire life, and you give it to someone else. And you give it to them in a way that maybe they don't understand, like why this macaroni and cheese is like so important to me. Like maybe they don't understand like why I think the idea of chocolate pasta is like really cool and I want to pursue it. But hopefully, if it's art or if it's a picture or a photograph, if it's a video, hopefully those impactful things like reach you, and like maybe it doesn't tell you the entire story, but I think those things like hit you in a really deep place because there's this like seed of honesty inside of it, and that everyone can kind of like wrap their heads around that. Like it touches you deeply. I hope, at least in what I do every day. Truth is something that you look for, and honesty is something that you give to people. And that process can be pretty painful. There's always kind of a price to be paid for like being honest, or mostly there's a price to be paid for being honest. If someone like comes up to you and they're like, "Hey, man," and they've got their arm, plastic wrapped because they just got a new tattoo, and you're like, "Hey, you got a new tattoo? Let me take a look at it." And you look at it, and you're like, "Oh, man, that's Chunk from the Goonies. Like, I love Chunk, and the Goonies is great." And you're like, "Oh, man, that's my baby." Like, there's a price there. Like there's probably a price to be paid there. And you go to work, and someone like looks at you, and they're like, "Yeah, man, let's build the wall." And you're like, "I don't want the wall." Like if it's your boss, there could be a price to be paid there. Like, do these pants make my ass look big? Like an honest answer to the question, depending, could entail a price. And the price can be paid like in the moment, like it could be that the expression of that honesty like hurts you. That getting that thing that's been inside of you out can cause you, emotional or sometimes even physical pain. But sometimes the price is down the road a little bit. Sometimes you don't really you don't necessarily see it coming. And the price can be kind of like exacted from you or the people around you. I remember my mom's favorite story to tell about me, which is not that embarrassing now, but I'll probably be paying the price for this act for the rest of my life. When I was a kid, everything that we ate, we didn't have a lot of money, so my parents worked really hard, and we had a garden, and my mom put things away to make sure that we had food to eat. Inside of doing that, she would make dinner every night, and she would put it on the table, and we'd all sit there, and we'd eat it, and we'd have our own individual experiences with it, which sometimes maybe weren't that great, in the case of mom's spaghetti, which I wasn't a huge fan of. And then at the end of the meal, my dad kind of taught us to go around in a circle and say, "Hey, thanks, Mom. Like, that meal was really good." And so we had a meal, and I don't remember what the meal was, but I do remember that I did not enjoy it. My brother looks at my mom and says, "Thanks, Mom. That meal was like really good, and I really appreciate it." And I looked at him and I said, "I don't know why you would tell that lie." you know that food wasn't any good. It's one of those things where, like the price that I paid for that, I paid for decades and probably for the rest of my life in some form or fashion. So it's probably around that time that I kind of developed a reputation for being a forthright person. I'm not like an honesty, truth guru. I'm not an expert or a pro at any of this stuff. I just clearly have opinions about things that every once in a while flag the attention of some people, which I think might be the reason that Mackenzie asked me to do this. I spent a lot of time being honest with the people that I work for. There was a big chunk of my life where I was doing a thing that it wasn't me. I worked at AT&T. I dispatched, install, and repair technicians, and I hated my job. I was very honest about that too. So when there was an opportunity for early retirement, I was very enthusiastically encouraged to take it. So I did, and I kind of like struck out on this, this journey that I'm on now, and it was this thing that I was like, I want to figure out. I want to figure out, what is me and like what I want to do. I gave you my phone, and I need it back because I want to read a thing verbatim, and I forgot about that. So when I went to DC, I don't think I really realized like what that was going to cost me. It is expensive to live. Cooks don't get paid very well. I was far away from everybody that I knew and everyone that I loved. So when people were in the hospital, people were having like happy times and birthdays, and kids were coming, and I was really, really far away, and I had a difficult time. Like,
so you went to DC to be a cook?
I went to DC to get back into fine dining, or to get back into the restaurant industry, which is what I was doing before I went to DC. High-end kitchens are like it can be a difficult place to be. Like, this thumb is missing a piece because I cut it off. These burns are where some apple pie decided to take their turn cooking meat. There are all these things, like these slices and burns and scrapes, and you're tight and you're close. There's a payoff that too, like teamship, and being in a team and building a family. But it costs something, and it can be a very demoralizing place, especially, for someone like me who was like a career changer, and I had like no business being in the kitchen I was in, like at all. I left here feeling like a pretty good home cook, and like I was going to go there and like do some things, and I got into this like really high-end kitchen, and like the first thing I learned was that I was really horrible at cooking. Within a couple of weeks though, I'm like on the line, and I'm kind of like doing my thing where we started service, and I think it was like a Thursday night, and I was doing all right, for the first hour, 6:15, I was holding my own, and then at 7 o'clock, that's when the dinner rush happens, and the restaurant filled up. So the restaurant I worked at, you have everyone that comes into the restaurant, every seat gets an amuse. And that amuse is just like a gift from the kitchen that like lets you know, hey, this is what we're doing here tonight. It kind of is supposed to set the tone for the evening. So as things start to get busy, I go from needing 2 or 3 amuse to needing, 6 or 8 amuse. And I remember my ticket at 7 o'clock was for 6 amuse, and then I had like some salads and cold garnishes behind it. If I get too technical, I'm sorry. So I make these amuse, which fortunately was just like a cold soup, and I put it in a cup, and I put it on the patch for the chef to take a look at, and he walks over and he nudges garnish around, and he asks to taste the soup. And I was like, here you go. Did you taste the soup? Absolutely, I taste the soup when I made the soup. It was a cold soup, and when you make a cold soup, you have to season it extra. You have to like make sure, because when things are cold, they don't taste as much as they do when they're warm. So he sticks his pinky in it, which is this thing I hate to this day. And he tastes it, and he calls my sous chef, and then they have a conversation in front of me as 10 miles away. Did you tell this guy that when you make a cold soup, you have to re-season this soup? This soup doesn't taste like anything. I can't serve it. He pushes one of the cups over, just walks away. So we like re-season the soup, and we get it out. And the entire time that this interaction is going on, the ticket printer is just like going. When I pull the tickets up, like they're balled up on the floor because there's so many. And now I have an entire board of things that I have to get out. There's 15 green salads, and there's garnish for like 9 hot apps. I have to get amuse for like 30 people out the door. I've got an enormous like pile of things to do, and I have no idea like where to start. So I start laying out cups for the amuse, and I think about the fact that those salads came in before these people sat down. So I turn around to make these salads. And then I think about the fact that the amuse is actually like the start to the meal, and I should probably put that out. So I turn back to the amuse. And then I remember that when I make the tartare, I'm supposed to let it sit for a few minutes. So then I turn around to like start that. And then I remember that the potato salad also needs a little bit of time to marinate. So I turn around to like start mixing that. And then it comes back to the amuse because they're screaming for it from the past. And so I turn back around to do the amuse. And then the guys put the hot tuna and the hot scallop in the window that I'm supposed to have this cold garnish for, and I don't have it ready. So I turn back to that. What I didn't realize is that I was just spinning in a circle in the middle of the kitchen, and everyone was looking at me. My sous chef comes over, and like I spin into him, and he like looks at me, and I'm like freaking out. And I like look at him, and I'm like scared, and I don't know what to do. And I've noticed that then everyone else is like no one's cooking because there's no reason for them to cook because the first courses come off of my station. So he looks at me and he says, "Stop spinning in circles and just put food on the plate." And in that moment, I realized that like it might be time for me to be honest with myself about the fact that I didn't belong there. Like maybe I wasn't one of those guys. Like maybe this wasn't the thing that I was supposed to do. And that was really painful. And it wasn't the time that I had a moment to like process that. I had to just like kind of get through it and finish it. We got through service and no one died and no one got sick and everyone ate. And I feel like most everyone enjoyed everything. But after service, I'm having this moment where I'm cleaning and I'm just like, I don't know, like, I'm probably going to get fired. Like, that was horrible. And these people took a chance on me and I came here and I suck. Like, and I think being very honest with myself about that. And I like talked to my sous chef after and he's like, "Hey man, like tonight wasn't a good night." And I was like, yeah, you can say that. And I was like, "Should I come to work tomorrow?" He's like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of figured after tonight I'd be fired." And he was like, "No, we don't fire people." He said, "We just burn them out." You don't get off that easy. We'll see you tomorrow. So there's some other things, you know, like that kind of honesty like has a cost. And then also when you put yourself into things, criticism. Maybe my phone there is a deep price to pay for people that are creative. People don't think about the fact that like you've put a thing that you like made, a thing that you care about, a thing that you've slaved over in front of them when they decide to just like kick it down the road and maybe take a healthy dump on it. And it's really an impactful thing. Like it matters a lot. I remember when I got when I got to a place called the Flatiron, which is downtown. I was super happy to be there. It was one of the first times I was going to be able to like present my idea of like what people should eat in a restaurant setting. I had a food truck. I'd been doing pop-ups and stuff like that, but it was the first time that I got to like say, "Hey, like this is my environment. This is my food, and I'm going to put this food on a plate, not in a paper boat or in a paper cup." And it was a really exciting thing for me. And I just want you guys to hear the first Yelp review that I read on the other side of this process. Pretty verbatim. Used to be really good. They hired a trendy chef, former owner of a German village restaurant that, according to Columbus Underground, thanks a lot, guys, unexpectedly closed its shutters last October. Not sure what that means. Now there's improvement, bringing in someone whose former restaurant failed, either due to bad food, bad management, or both. They removed most of the standard items and helped them achieve a great reputation and replaced them with food I can get at Applebee's, and that's a lot. That's a lot. Not even like the wings at Applebee's, which are edible, it's like the other stuff.
Don't sue us.
It's me. It's not them. I guess they're following, which I don't need the rest. I don't need to read the rest of it necessarily. Like it was just a really like savage, painful attack, like on me personally as a human being. And at the end of the review, a couple of people that are here might remember. The guy mentioned that he had not eaten at the Flatiron since we made those changes, and that he never would as long as I was going to be there. So the criticism, as you face that, also puts you in a situation where you have to like have some honesty. Like maybe this person is right, or maybe they're wrong. No, but you have to kind of like give it a chance. You have to like absorb it and see what you can take away from it, or at least that's the way that I kind of like go after that. I know we're leaving some room for some conversation, et cetera, et cetera. I'll just kind of like cruise through. Like the restaurant that he talked about like being shuttered was connected to my food truck, which is for a really long time was like the biggest part of me. And we had a couple of pop-ups that were operating as well. And so like when they all shuttered, that was another moment of me like having to be honest with myself about the fact that like none of that was working. I was very hopeful that it was going to work, but it just wasn't coming together the way that I needed to continue. And if I hadn't been honest with myself about that and let that go and realized that that season was over, and that many more seasons since then have passed, I wouldn't be in the situation that I'm in today, where I have the opportunity to like create for people an entire experience as my partner, or my business partner, and I open a restaurant down on the south end of High Street, just south of downtown. So that's basically what
Tell us the name of your restaurant first.
the restaurant on South High Street is going to be called Ambrose and Eve. It's going to be kind of an upscale dinner party every night. Is what we're aiming for. We'll also be open for like a brunch, lunch spend for the people that work in the neighborhood during the day.
So the Yelp reviewer, what did you do with that? I mean, you mentioned it, and you said maybe he was right, maybe he wasn't. What did you do with that? Did you sort of put it aside and said, nah, I'm not going to worry about that, or?
I've had more than a few like bad reviews, and what I normally tend to do in those situations is try to like soak out of it what I can soak out of it. Like in like maybe not that one, but in most of the worst reviews, there's like a thing. There's like my salad had some sand in it, so I got to talk to the guys about like being sure that they like watch the salad, like pay attention when they're building salads, or like this was under seasoned or this was overcooked. There's like a little bit of something for you in all of it, but you have to kind of, when you make something, you have to, or I feel like it's the most healthy for you if you can kind of separate the good from the bad, because there's something in that criticism that can probably make you better if you can get around the things that are hurt, around the things that hurt you to see them.
Early on, you talked about creative honesty. Is there creative truth?
I think I've been hearing about that on the news recently. I think, in my opinion, that the truth is something that just is. I think that if we can be high up enough in the sky, that it can be fairly objective. Like, this is just the way that it is. This, the sky is this color, the grass is this color. Like, things grow this way. This is the way that our bodies like process nutrients. Salt and sugar make things taste good. I think that the truth is a very objective. I think objectively the truth is a solid thing. But that's my opinion in someone. There's plenty of time in life for me to change my opinion about that as well.
Early on, you said faith and curiosity don't make the best partners. How come?
So and I have to say that in my experience, like I always hesitate to take away, to chip away at someone's faith, because in all honesty, like I have a lot of respect and like maybe a little bit of envy of people that have like this really staunch idea of like how everything works. Like it's a fantastic thought for me that like everybody that I've lost in my life is like somewhere like nice and awesome because they were good people and they're enjoying themselves. Like that's a really, really happy thought. So I wouldn't want to take that away from anyone. But in my experience in things that require you to have faith, strictly based on faith alone, it's one thing for me to have faith that you're going to like do what you tell me that you're going to do. It's another thing for me to have faith in a construct that I have no way to empirically prove. And so in that space, I feel like it's difficult for them to coexist because my questions would be like, I don't know, Dad, how did Noah fit all of those animals on the ark? And, my dad's response was like, well, I don't know, son, like that's just a thing that we'll find out later on. We have to take these things on faith. And I'm just not built to take those kinds of things on faith.
You almost have questions for Matt, so I'm happy to walk around with a microphone here.
You talked about the cost of honesty, and I'm wondering, given the things that you've said, do you find that there's a cost for not being honest?
Maybe not if you're really good at it. I used to think that, everyone says, like, they're going to get theirs, like down the road, like they're going to get what's coming to them. And I think I don't see that happening as much as I would like to in society. So, I kind of like, maybe I don't know how I feel about that. I think day to day, I think there's a moral cost. You know, like there's and I think here I talk about truth and being honesty, truth instead of honesty. I think that like when you don't tell the truth, when you're not honest to yourself, like you're not telling the truth to yourself, like it can chip away at you as a person. Like it can move you from like one place to another, and when you get to that other place, you might look around and be like, I don't know how I got here. This feels like a place that I don't want to be. So like I do feel like I guess at the end of the stories, I do think that there is a cost. I just think it's a cost that a lot of people are willing to pay, and that you can't necessarily like see when people are paying that cost.
I want to thank you for your perspective on this. I really had no idea coming to today's session how honesty would be addressed in a Creative Mornings talk, and I really liked the way that you did it, and it opened some thoughts about critiquing. And as someone whose second career was as a professor at the local art college here, critiquing was a really important part of what I did. And one of the things that you said repeatedly was, from my perspective or this context, which, especially dealing with the freshmen and sophomores, as a professor critiquing, we always had, it was important to say that this is our perspective, this is our subjective opinion on this, it's based on this kind of experience, but it still kept it as something that was based on perception. And the other thing was that it had to be communicated that this was a critique about the work, not about the person. And I think that really helped students accept the honesty about the work without it being a reflection really on them as human beings. So I appreciate your bringing that back to me.
Oh, thank you. I read a lot of restaurant and food criticism. Not just in Columbus. I read like national critics. I'm curious about like what's going on everywhere. And the best critics, I think, tell you, the best critics pull up a seat for you at a restaurant that you might not ever be able to afford to get to or have time to go to. But they also are talking not just to the audience, but they're talking to the staff. And they're telling you like where you went wrong. And the best of them do it in a way where they don't like take your soul out of you while they're doing it. Jonathan Gold, Bill Addison, those are guys that I really look up to for that.
If there was a strange feature in Yelp where you as the creator could not see any positive comments, would you still be interested in taking a look at it? Would it still be valuable to you? Given the perspective the negative comments come from, et cetera,
For Yelp specifically,
or something like that.
well, that's a good place to start. Yes. I mean, I'd probably have to sit down with like a lot of bourbon. It would be like, it would take a concerted effort, but I really do believe in almost every criticism I've read of what I do that there is something there. There's a lot of it that I can dismiss, like this guy is really mean, and I don't know why. And I'm not sure what I did to him. But like, yeah, this thing probably happened. Like, so even in the most like rancorous, like gross criticism, there's like a thing in there that I feel like you can use to make yourself better.
So as host, I get to ask the last question. And my suspicion is for a lot of the creatives in this room, the idea of both creativity and craft, or I think that was a term used, craft. There's a sort of repetition to it. There's a certain messiness to it that you just have to sort of plow through. I think that probably describes a lot of our creative work. I was really privileged this week to interview an artist, and we spent a lot of time talking about her creative process. I wanted to sort of peer inside your creative process. Where do your ideas come from? Where does the idea of chocolate pasta come from?
I do, well, a lot of reading in general, and as much eating as I can, and that does a lot of like inspiration, or that generates a lot of inspiration. I consume like food media, so like my entire Instagram feed is just like food and like what all these people that I look up to are doing. And then I maintain a file of all those things that are interesting to me so that I can like go back and reference them and look at them. I just feel like there's a break there between seeing something that you like and copying it, which is a much wider idea. You know, like it's not like you see this duck dish and you think it looks really good, but you want it to be your own thing, so you change the sauce, but the heart of the dish is the same thing. For me, it's about looking at a dish and kind of like exploding it apart, figuring out what it is that I really, really like and respect about that dish, and then trying to put together something, if that's my source of inspiration, that is equal in spirit, but different in execution. And I'm inspired by a lot of the things that I like to eat, like specifically, like I really like chocolate, and the idea of eating chocolate as like a savory thing isn't that foreign. At the time that I like made the first like version of chocolate pasta, it was something that when I started to think about it, I didn't remember ever seeing it before. So there was a lot of like walking through like how that was going to work, and you know, like if I replace a lot of the semolina with cocoa powder, what's going to happen to the composition of this pasta? Is it going to be chalky? Is it going to be mushy? Is it going to be grainy? Is it going to cook correctly? And so this one turned out okay, and then we moved on to version 2, and then version 3, which was probably the most divisive version. I was like, well, you know, this is a pretty acidic product, and I could probably use this cocoa to make cheese, and if I use that cheese to make gnocchi, then I've, you know, kind of like come full circle. So a lot of it also is about just like continual improvement on the things that I've done.
Being open, being curious. Matt Heaggans, thank you.